All right, it's been a couple days, but I thought these changes in general were going to be a little disastrous, I guess. So I wanted to see some of the effects before I made a YouTube video about it. But let's talk about these changes. We're going to talk about Arcane first. This is relatively unimportant since Fire doesn't have mana problems anymore. But yeah, so when you're looking at Arcane, they made it so Nether Precision no longer benefits Barrage. They added a choice node talent to buff Aether Vision, and then they made it so you generate a splinter when you consume a fully stacked Aether Vision rather than just Nether Precision to hopefully make Spellslinger not ass after this change. So, what does this mean? Functionally, apparently, your single targets remain relatively similar, but at least from what I think we currently play as is what I last saw Porm say. But we'll see it probably undergo a bunch of revisions. However, this is going to make your AoE rotation feel a heck of a lot worse, and probably a lot of other things, to be honest. Pressing Barrage often is kind of fun. The current iteration of Aether Vision is annoying but manageable because you're still barraging pretty frequently, and it's a rewarding bind to press. With these changes, though, the thing they probably thought they were doing was they thought, oh, if we remove the multiplicative benefit from Nether Precision and Aether Vision, it's going to make it so you'll just barrage with Aether Vision and not worry about Nether Precision. But no, because now you need to be concerned with all the other things that buff Barrage's damage. Because previously, Nether Precision and Aether Vision alone was strong enough for you to press it in most cases, unless you were Sunfury. And that's not true anymore, because Nether Precision doesn't exist. So now, you quite literally are Porm has transitioned to using a calculator in the APL to decide when he wants to barrage. How high mana are you for your stacking and lane buff? How much arcane debilitation stacks does the target have? Are you in touch with the Magi? Does the target have spark on it because you haven't hit them with a barrage yet? Are you in surge? Are you in execute? Like, how many stacks of Aether Vision do you have? It's a little silly. And that's more what we're going to have now to determine whether barraging is worth it, as opposed to just, oh hey, I have 2 Aether Vision stacks and another precision, or I have 1 Aether Vision stack and no Nether Precision. Things like that are how you currently barrage, and that's just not going to be true anymore. It's literally going to be a calculation, which again, you'll have a weak order probably, just telling you when to barrage, but it's not going to be intuitive. And we made major step backs from 11.0. And I think this is probably the worst one, in that the design choice to make Barrage consume Nether Precision was a very good one for interacting with the specs base kit in AoE, and in particular for Spellslinger, right? Because now you're going to be in AoE, you're going to generate Nether Precision, and if you want a Barrage, you're not going to consume it. Okay? That's fine. If there was some other compelling reason. But what these changes functionally do is almost nothing to your single target while just destroying your cleave. There's no world in which you do not spam Arcane Blast in AoE now. And that is because, what are you going to do? Are you going to Arcane Explosion? The one change that Arcane actually needed in 0.1 was to make Arcane Explosion a functional ability in its AoE kit. And the way to do that is to make it generate splinters and to make it progress Spellfire spheres. And they did neither of those changes while making it so Barrage doesn't interact at all with Nether Precision, which means now you have to Arcane Blast even more, because there's no room for Arcane Explosion. There was already almost no room, and now there's definitely none, right? Look at this. Spellslinger, the only way to generate a splinter outside of Orb is consuming Nether Precision, which you can only do with Arcane Blast, or fully stacked Aether Vision, which you have to Arcane Blast twice to get. And even then, we were relatively frequently using a Barrage without a fully stacked Aether Vision. And now you're forced to wait to get a fully stacked Aether Vision, or just let it fall off. Okay? So, I don't know. I'm going to be honest, these changes just seem horrible. I was thinking the Frost changes or the way Frost was heading a little bit was tough, and I would play more Arcane next patch, but this just seems absolutely horrible. I think Arcane's AoE was in a very bad state currently, and I really wanted them to make it so you did not have to spam Arcane Blast in AoE, because Arcane Explosion is much more consistent, and it's It's better than casting a zero charge Arcane Blast all the time and relying on orb procs. But instead, they've kind of just made it functionally worse, and this is a terrible decision. And then they just reverted these changes. Like, why are we changing Burden of Power, Glacial Incandescence every patch? What does it even do now? I don't know. Reverted to what? Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's just Burn Power is like only consumed by Arcane Blast, and then Clear's Incandescence now also only works with Barrage, and you just Barrage and get your charges back, I guess. But yeah, this is. Anyway, Arcane, why? You know? And then they add this boring choice note talent down here with Lay Sight, which I don't think you'll be taking in AoE. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but I don't know. You know, Lay Sight just made better sense. You know, now this is just a, do you want to buff Arcane Blast? Do you want to buff Barrage? Choice node. That's silly. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah. Very disappointed with Arcane. I think it's going to feel a lot worse to play, specifically in Cleave and AoE. And for no reason, really. They keep, like, this will convolute your rotational decision making? No, because previously it was strong enough to simplify your rotational decision making. And now that it's gone, your rotational decision making is harder because you need all the other tiny buffs that add up to like the 1,600% buff to Barrage you can totally get. You need those to add up to be strong enough to cast Barrage, and now that's just not true. So, okay, sure. Anyway, for Frost, we have some changes, and we're talking about Wintertide first. So they removed it from me in the 20% damage buff to Ice Lance when you overlap frozen things, and the 10% buff to Frostbolt to instead be a stacking buff to Frostbolt and Flurry, or from Frostbolt and Flurry that increases damage of Icicles and Glacial Spike. So what this doesn't mention is how this works. How it works is, oh look, I Frostbolt, I get a stack when it hits the enemy. I Frostbolt, I get a stack when it hits the enemy. I Frostbolt, I get the stack when it hits the enemy. So now I have 4 stacks. Whoa, max stacks. But what if I Frostbolt again? Now it's gone. It's gone because it gets consumed when Icicles or Glacial Spike touch an enemy. That's a problem. You might be like, okay, I'll just consume it with Glacial Spike. But you can't. You can't do that because most of the time, I mean, sometimes you'll be Glacial Spiking into Flurry here, right? But let's say I Frostbolt into Flurry at 4 Icicles, and I'm like, cool, now I'm in Glacial Spike. Well, I just Frostbolt into Flurry at 4 Icicles, and the Icicle for my Flurry happened when I was at 5, so it's going to get sent and reset my Wintertide stacks after I already Flurried. So I'm just going to be Glacial Spiking with 0 Wintertide stacks when my Icicle, my singular Icicle, got buffed by 16%. Okay, I'll give you the demonstration when my Icicles go away. But that's really bad. You know, for instance, here's, at least in one part, I'm sure this is slightly due to Frostfire shenanigans, but like, now our Flurry, and especially our Flurry after Glacial Spike versus after Frostfire Bolt, are very distinctly separated in our priority list. You know, in part due to Comet Storm, and then also in part due to Wintertide, right? Because, you know, I have Frostbolt, Flurry at 3, and I have 1 Wintertide stack, even though I Frostbolt Flurry at 3, and you want to know why? It's because I procced Splintering Cold. So you're just randomly going to, even when you don't intend to, overcap Icicles and lose your Wintertide stacks, and suddenly hit a Glacial Spike that does 12% less damage than it should. And that is a problem. It's non-intuitive in the way it forces you to change your usage. It's not something that you're really going to be intentionally maximizing your gameplay around in a way you can control. And it's just boring, to be honest. Like, I'm fine with Glacial Spike consuming it, but Icicles should not consume it if you have Glacial Spike talented. And if you don't have Glacial Spike talented, having 1 Icicle consume a 16% damage Icicle buff is really bad. So they should probably just make Icicles not consume it at all. And then you have a passive buff to Icicles if you don't have Glacial Spike. And if you do have Glacial Spike, sure, you still have a passive buff to Icicles, but you're definitely going to cast Glacial Spike. It's not a problem for Frost at the moment that it doesn't cast Glacial Spike. Maybe it's a problem that it doesn't cast Glacial Spike instantly because it wants to shatter it, which this change does potentially help with, but not really. Not for Spellslinger. And Frostfire, it's still a gain to hold it for shattering even with this. So Yeah, make it not consumed, or just make it only consumed by Glacier Spike, and that'll be good. But the way it currently works is silly. Winter Shield duration was buffed. That's good. We'll see if it causes anything to generate later on, but so far it's looking like only good things. And Fringe of Frost and Frozen Orb. This matters very little for Frostfire. I think it reduced its Fringe of Frost generation from like 51 to 46. For Spellslinger, I didn't actually look, but let's see. It reduced its Fringe of Frost generation by about 40% or more. So, that's a very large hit to Spellslinger. The unfortunate thing about this is Spellslinger was actually already weaker than Frostfire by a large margin in 0.1. So Frostfire was winning by about 6%. And currently, Frostfire is winning by about 11%. So, Spellslinger's a little dead. Tough. But good thing they nerfed it by, 5% more with these changes, right? This is fun. We were going to Blizzard and single target, and it's Frostfire, I believe. Not as Spellslinger, but if you took the Blizzard talents, you would Blizzard and single target with Freezing Rain. We might still Blizzard and single target with Freezing Rain. I'm not sure where that landed. But at least it's not your optimal single target build anymore. But yeah. And then they changed the positions of Comet Storm, Glacial Assault, Wintertide, and Lonely Winter, which really seems to only be they didn't like that Frost or Spellslinger was at least going to not take Comet Storm in single target. They just swapped their positions, made Wintertide a one talent node. And yeah, so it's a little strange because Spellslinger is probably going to take Comet Storm and then just not cast in single target. And now your choices to get down to Icy Veins are either, do I want to take these AoE talents, or do I want to take these AoE talents? Okay, why? But yeah, it gives you one more talent point in the second gate or before because you only have a 1-point node here instead of a 2-point node, which is relevant in that it does this. Let me. From order. So this is the count of potential talent combinations. So this is essentially done by looking at however many talent nodes you have in the tree and how many times you can like fully fill out in a different way. Frost has, I think, the lowest number of talent nodes in the tree, and now it has like the lowest number of spec points as well. So you can see if you're playing Frost Mage, your total potential combinations is 1.5 million. And if you're playing a Resto Druid, your total combinations of all your talents is 337 billion, which is a very, very large number. So even from the other specs, right, there's 10 million less potential talent combinations than Arcane. And Fire's also doing pretty well at 1 billion, 1.1 billion combinations. So yeah, we could use some talents added to our tree, though. If they're gonna make him like Wintertide, where it gets consumed by an random icicle, maybe we don't actually. But we're really taking just so many other talents in our tree, right? The only talents we're not taking this is highly situational Frostbolt talent, AoE, AoE if you combo it with Frostbite, AoE, 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 right? There's only potentially 2 other single target talents on this tree that we would take. That's like Slick Ice and Cold Draw. So yeah, it's a little silly, isn't it? But and then they corrected themselves that this was actually intentionally reduced to 5 seconds from 10. That's okay, because 10 seconds was a little ridiculous. Right, that was a third of the cooldown at the time, and 5 seconds fine. But given that you proc it less frequently, it's interesting that they nerfed it still. So yeah, but yeah, I think these are I think these are pretty bad Arcane changes, and I'm very disappointed by them because I enjoyed Arcane, Dragonflight, I enjoyed it, started the War Thin, and it's really turning into a spec I didn't enjoy. Frostfire, what the heck is this talent design? It's like they keep nerfing Pairs of Frost ostensibly to make it more impactful, but they just removed like a 20% damage buff from Wintertide. They keep removing the amount of Ice Lances you're using with Fingers of Frost, and I'm not really seeing, the other side, right? You're nerfing it to make it more impactful, and we're getting the nerfs and not the impact, right? Ice Lance is losing a significant amount of damage going into next year because we don't have our tier set, and we don't have Wintertide. We have way less chances to Ice Lance, so it's like, are we gonna get the buff part to Ice Lance soon, or is it just like, is it only nerfs? We're just not Ice Lancing as much, and they're weaker as well. So yeah, interesting. And then the last thing to talk about would be Mastery. That's pretty bad. That's a lot worse than all the other stats. I wonder why. Maybe it's because all of our Frostfire effects aren't on our Mastery. Our Spell Center effects are on our Mastery, but they're worse than Verse, and some of the effects don't scale with Mastery. So it's like, okay, why? You literally just reworked our Mastery in Dragonflight to make it relevant, so that it wasn't useless. And you didn't want to continue that trend for one more expansion. It's like 2 patches later after the rework. Sorry, 2 major patches. They're like, "Yo, Master's dead again. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to make it good for half an expansion." So anyway, yeah, that's the current state of Mage. Fire's doing good though. Fire's happy. Big damage. Likes all the stats really well. I think the only stat that's worse than int for them is crit, and they didn't add int, or Norner didn't add int to this, but int's probably in the middle of these, and then fire is actually scaling. Normally it's a meme, but it's kind of scaling, to be honest. So, all right. Anyway, let me know your thoughts from these changes. I would really like them to take an actual look at Arcane. I don't want to say take an actual look at Arcane. They're obviously looking at Arcane, but ideally they would put some glasses on and potentially read one of Porum's posts or just talk to the dude. Literally just talk to him, because this is a horrible change for the actual Arcane community, the people that play Arcane Mage. It's just terrible. Anyway, a lot of harping, a lot of negativity here, but our tier set looks amazing. Love our tier set, or not tier set, but just the appearance. Like, this thing's sick, very sick. W. So anyway, see you guys next year. Make sure you get your rings on. Wear them the whole time. Can't wait to clear Mythic with my ring from 11.7. So yeah, have a good rest of your day.